Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Daily Football Roundup proudly brings to you the best damn podcast in the world, the 12-ounce Curl Route Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Current. You can find me on Twitter or X at Aaron Current. My co-host is Kyle. He can be found on the same app at DF Roundup. And my co-host, Corey, is a non-Twitter user. How we doing this week, fellas? What's going on?
Pretty sure I'm getting sick again, so that's fun.
Oh, yeah.
I was just sick like a month ago, so woohoo.
I went 6-0, so I'm going to be – you're going to get tired of me tonight on the podcast, I can tell you that right now. I am going to absolutely just shove this down everybody's throat. For the first time this season, I went 6-0. I've got 2 0-6 weeks under my belt. And finally, a 6-0. I'm ecstatic, but now, Corey, hats off to you. You've done this twice. The pressure of trying to go 6-0 back to back, it's too much. I don't know if I can handle this anymore. So expect to see me probably go 2-4, 3-3 next week.
Sounds like a typical Packer fan right now, but being way too excited about stuff. You notice I didn't brag at all when I went 6-0, but whatever.
Well, I went 5-1. I was quite proud of myself. So I guess with that, we just got to get right into last week's picks and talk a little bit about it, and then roll right into this week. The first one, the 12-ounce Curl Route Podcast, big spread of the week last week. Miami traveled to Washington. They won this game 45-15. We all picked Miami minus 9.5. It seemed pretty easy. Miami has a history this week of beating up on bad teams, and Washington is just that. They are a bad team, a bad organization. I don't know how the coaching staff is still intact, but it's rough out there in Washington. And Miami, they showed up and they took care of business. I heard something about a fire alarm going off at some point at Washington Stadium, but half the stadium was empty anyway. So, Corey, what'd you think of this one? This is your division leader, Miami Dolphins, right now.
So it turns out last week they didn't, I think it was last week or the week before, they didn't have hot water at FedEx Field. This time they did have hot water, but the fire alarms are going off. So that's just typical Washington. Look, Miami's beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. I think they're off fraud alert, but until they play a good team again, we'll see. But next week, we'll get into this later, they got Tennessee. As long as they keep putting up these spreads, I'm going to keep betting them and the points until somebody else beats them, basically. So I think they're just rolling right now.
Yeah, they seem to be rolling on all cylinders. Kyle, what did you think of this one?
I feel like every week we get the big spread of the week, and it's Miami. I feel like this is the third time in the last 4 weeks we've seen Miami as the big spread. And excuse me, I guess I'm foreshadowing to this week because they're back. Tyreek Hill. He has to be talked about. He needs to be the front runner, in my opinion, for the MVP. Quit giving it to these quarterbacks who aren't putting up these astronomical stats and give it to a guy who's literally going to break a record probably by the end of the season. And not just because we have 17 games, but because he is dominating the defense on the field and he's just able to turn any play into a big play. And we saw that on Sunday against Washington.
Yeah. I mean, if he keeps this up, they're going to have to start calling him Tyreek 2K or something. Because he's shooting for 2,000 yards. I think he said that at the start of the season, and everyone was like, "You're crazy. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Now here he is on pace to set that record. It's incredible. And just like you said, Kyle, yeah, he's got to be an MVP consideration. I mean, I know wide receivers don't win this. I don't know if one
no wide receivers ever won it.
Yeah. So I mean, and you think of the history of this league with Randy Moss's and Jerry Rice's and these great receivers. For him, if he were to win this award this year, especially in a year where quarterback play has been okay, but no one's really ran away with it, it almost kind of makes sense. And I think it would be a little bit of poetic justice for Tyreek to say he's going to do it, then go out and do it, and then bring home the hardware.
Well, and to mention too, it's Megatron's record, I believe, but especially like you said, with the quarterback play has been, Hurts was up there for a while. Tua was up there for a smidge. Dak is kind of up there right now. Dak's playing good, also playing bad teams. If there's ever a year to give it to somebody when they go 2,000 yards, if they don't do it this year, they're just never going to do it. And the MVP is just pretty much a farce at that point.
Yeah, they might as well just call it the MVQ, most valuable quarterback at that point. Exactly. I mean, yeah. We'll move on to our nail biter of the week, and it really was a nail biter. The Indianapolis Colts traveled down to Tennessee. They win this game in overtime, 31-28. We all had Indy, but honestly, guys, I watched this game in its entirety because the Bengals were on Monday night and the Bears were on bye. And I mean, I started out in a quad box, but this was the closest game at 1 o'clock. So I really tuned in to watch this game, and it was a really good game on both sides, both teams scratching and clawing. You had a blocked punt that got taken for a touchdown, and then the 2-point conversion gets picked off and taken the other way. It was just an insane game. Will Levis made some good plays, made some boneheaded plays, but all in all, Indianapolis, when the game was on the line, Minshew Mania came through and he hits Alec Pierce with a dime down the field to win this ball game, and Indianapolis sweeps the Titans this year. Corey, what did you think of this game, man?
Yeah, it was a nail biter. I did not watch it until the end when it switched over, but that was, I got just the best part of the game. Indy now sits in the 7th and final spot in the playoffs, and they have the current win-to-win head-to-head tiebreaker over Houston Texans. We'll get into them later. My Houston Texans. That game, I think they have to play one more time. That's going to be interesting. But Indy looks good right now without AR-15 and without Shaq Leonard, which that still makes no sense to me. Indy they're going to keep rolling, I think. They got a couple – their schedule's not that bad, I think. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, in that division, I guess Jacksonville is pretty good, but, we just saw what happened with their quarterback. Houston, they look good, but then there's games where they throw up clunkers. You never know what could happen if Indianapolis in that division.
So here's the remaining schedule. It's at the Titans. Oh, well, they just did that. At Bengals, winnable. Versus the Steelers at home, winnable. At Falcons, winnable. Raiders, winnable. And then the final game is the Texans.
Well, maybe the division's on the line in that final game. Kyle, what do you think of this game?
So what's really interesting, I guess not interesting and not really funny, but it's kind of funny, is that the Titans fired their special teams coordinator after this game. They had 2 punts blocked. Ryan Stonehouse, their punter, I believe is on IR for the rest of the season. Nick Folk, their kicker, came in and had some decent punts in this game too. Ryan Stonehouse is also the holder, so we got to see Andy Dalton come and hold an extra point. Tannehill, sorry, my apologies. Tannehill come in, hold an extra point. I think it was an extra point that got missed as well. This was a shit show, honestly. In my opinion, Indy should have won by a lot more than 3. Indiana or Tennessee's not. I don't think Tennessee's good. Vrabel, he's a great coach, but this team is just. They haven't been built the right way, and I think I've kind of been saying that all season. But I did see there was a lot of big plays in this, so I saw a decent amount of this game, probably more than I really wanted to. But Michael Pittman he's a monster.
Yeah, and that missed point was actually what led it to overtime. If he hits that extra point, we don't even see overtime in this game, and Tennessee wins outright. But yeah, I thought it was a good game, and I'm still going to be cheering for Levis. He had some plays where there was one where he jumped through the air and got the first down and looked like Kentucky Levis, right, Corey? Where he just hops up and he's just fired up, calling for the first down. And
well, not only that, but he fumbled and Indianapolis recovered, and then he forced the fumble and recovered it. I don't know if I think they gave him the first down on that. I'm not sure if they did, but as soon as that ball left his hand, he was in a full-on sprint too. Yeah. So
there's no quitting in him right now.
No, absolutely none.
Yeah, and the people in Tennessee are buying into him. Even the Volunteer fans that hated the pick when they drafted him just because he was a Kentucky quarterback, even those fans are starting to be like, maybe he gives us a chance if we can build around him. But we'll move on. Another 1 o'clock game. Sunday at 1 o'clock, Detroit Lions traveled down to New Orleans to take on the Saints. They win this game 33-28. We all had Detroit -4. and Detroit started out in this game blowing them out. I had it on the quad box, and I turned it off. I was like, "That's boring. Nothing's going to happen there." The next thing I know, I see the score coming across the bottom, and it's a close game. And I was like, "What in the world happened?" Corey, did you watch any of this game?
Yeah, I went to use the bathroom, came back, it was 21-0. I was like, "What happened?" And so I kind of like the other game on the other local game was not as good. So I was like, "All right, I'll just do some shit around the house, fold laundry, no big deal." And then I kept hearing this, the crowd going wild because they were in New Orleans, and I was like, "What is happening in this game?" And I turn around, it's close, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So I sit down and watch the rest of it. Detroit tried to give that game away. That's the reason why we'll see in the next week why the spread is so close in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit defense, despite the guy from Michigan, the defensive player,
Aiden Hutchinson.
Despite him, that defense is almost next to hot garbage, and they've not gotten any much better since last year. So it's going to be just all up. They have to outscore everybody. They have to outscore everybody. That's the only way they're going to win.
Yeah, I like Hutch, and I like Brian Branch, the guy they drafted this year.
Branch
I also
too,
like the linebacker out of Iowa, Jack Campbell, that they drafted. But those are young players, and they're going to have the ups and downs that a rookie has coming to this level of the NFL. And, yeah, I mean, Detroit the last few weeks, they've just kind of – we talked about them becoming the hunter rather than becoming the hunted rather than the hunter, taking over this division. And I don't know if I want to say it's crumbling, but it's a little shaky there in Detroit. Kyle, what do you think of this one, man?
8 minutes left in the first quarter. This game was 21-0, like Corey said. 8 minutes left in the first quarter, 21-0. Interesting from this, I am in a super flex dynasty league where my quarterbacks I have Justin Fields, who's on a bye. I've got Daniel Jones, who he's on an extended bye, and I've got Derek Carr. And a few weeks ago, I picked up Taysom Hill, and I said, you know what? Taysom Hill's got big playability. I didn't start a quarterback in my Superflex. I have a lot of older running backs in this league because it's a first-year startup, and I sent it with Taysom Hill as my starting quarterback for this week in that league. It wasn't like anything great. I still lost, but Taysom Hill outscored Derek Carr in fantasy. And it's just the Saints team does not – I feel like Derek Carr is not a fit for New Orleans. I feel like Derek Carr was a perfect fit in Las Vegas. He is and always will be a Raider. And he kind of fit that Raider look and that mentality. And I mean, the guy looks like he's wearing mascara every week. He's already, I mean, he's
the black eyeliner, man.
It's the black eyeliner. It's whatever it is. I don't know makeup. I don't know. He just doesn't fit New Orleans to me. And I don't think that I'm surprised they even really went after Derek Carr and didn't just stick with Jameis, because the times that Jameis comes in, he doesn't look bad. But for this game to be 33-28, there was no 21-0 with 8 minutes left in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I want to say this real quick. I actually disagree with Winston. If there was any doubters that still thought that Winston could be good, I think that was answered this past Sunday. I don't think they blow that team completely up. And how in the world are they $71 million over the cap next year? That's insane.
That's the New Orleans way. When they brought Ryan Pace to Chicago, he did the exact same thing here, where they backload those contracts, then they get themselves in trouble and try and borrow from it or try and push them back further to kick the can down the road, so to speak, and it gets them all in trouble. Fellas, I think New Orleans might be a bigger issue than just quarterback. I'm not sure Dennis Allen is a good coach. He's a defensive coach in a league that's going offensive-minded head coaches, let's be honest. And since Sean Payton left, really the Saints have just looked blah. I mean, I believed in this team. I liked them. I picked them to win the division, I do believe. I like their defense. I like a lot of the pieces that are there. I love Derek Carr. As a Raider, I thought he would do just fine in New Orleans. And fellas, it's just kind of ugly every week. And I mean, I guess luckily they're in the division that they're in, because it's really not pretty in New Orleans. And I think it's from the top down, really. Almost they just got to tear it all down and rebuild it. I think maybe
Dennis Allen has a 35% win rate as a head coach. That ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah. Well, it's probably still higher than my head coach, but we'll move on. Sunday at 4:05, the Denver Broncos traveled to Houston. Myself and Corey picked Denver plus 3.5, and this is the only game I got wrong. Kyle correctly picked Houston minus 3.5, and Houston, even though they won, sadly Tank Dell ripped his Achilles, I believe, or ACL. One of the two. He's out for the rest of the year. No, it was a broken fibula. Yeah, broke his leg. So he's out the rest of the year, which really sucks for him. He was having a great rookie year, really clicking with CJ Stroud, Coleridge, Bernard Stroud the third. Is it the fourth? Yeah, so he was really clicking with him, and it sucks to see him go. But fellas, Houston tried their damnedest to give this game to Denver. Denver just couldn't score at the end. They had the ball several times down 5, and they just couldn't. They turned into the early Broncos of this year. Corey, your beloved Houston Texans come away with the win. How you feeling about this game, bud?
Very proud to be a Stroud boy today. Denver gave that game away. I think Denver, the way they were driving, and then all of a sudden it just stalled. And like you were saying, it looked like the beginning of the year. Denver had a chance to, in theory, be up like 45-22. And they just kept stalling out of nowhere after like a nice bomb or something that would go off, and then they just stopped. The Texans, yeah, that sucks that Tank Dell went down. They got the win they needed. This was pretty much the tiebreaker for those two teams to try to get in. They're in 8th place right now. But the two teams in front of them and Indy are losing lately. So they both have a chance still. And the division's still up for grabs, too. We always forget about that. So I think Houston will be okay. They didn't play their best, and losing Tank Dell does suck, but I do think they get Dalton Schultz back this week. And they still got Nico Collins and Noah Brown and Devin Singletary. And Damian Pierce had kind of a coming back out game this week. So I think they'll be okay.
What about you, Kyle? How'd you feel on this one?
I think my two biggest takeaways from this game is, one, Tank Dell's 5'10", 165. Why do you have him in a scrum trying to help push a running back into the end zone? The man coming into the week was questionable. Why do you have why do you have your smallest wide receiver up that close to the line of scrimmage like that? You're asking for him to come out hurt. The guy doesn't deadlift 600 pounds like Jalen Hurts. You don't do that. Number two is Damian Pierce is hot garbage. He should not be leading that backfield. Devin Singletary had 2 really, really good games while Pierce was out, and then you give it right back to Pierce once he's done being injured. Denver is terrible against the run, awful against the run. I think Damian Pierce's stats were 15 carries for 41 yards. Now, my math isn't great, but that's under 3 yards in average per carry against one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. You need to get Devin Single back in there, and you need to make him your lead back for the rest of the season. I mean, that's all I got.
Yeah, he really carried that backfield while Pierce was out and looked really good doing it. I believe he was the first Texans running back to go over 100 yards in like several games. So yeah, to see those carries taken away from him simply because of, I don't know where he was drafted or just because of last year, maybe. I'm not sure.
I think Pierce was undrafted, wasn't he? Or was he drafted late?
I think he was drafted late.
I can't remember what's on my head.
But I mean,
4th round. Okay,
you got a drafted guy versus a guy you picked up in free agency. I don't know. Maybe they thought they saw something on tape that they could exploit, and it just didn't work out. But we'll move on to America's Game of the Week. Sunday at 4:25, the San Francisco 49ers traveled to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Myself and Kyle had San Francisco minus 2.5. Corey picked Philly plus 2.5. He did say that he only picked them because they were the plus. If San Fran had been the plus, he would have picked them. But San Fran just kind of went in there, and every time I looked up, it seemed like they were scoring. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. I had George Kittle on my fantasy team. I wish he would have scored once or twice. That would have been nice because I lost by 0.2 in that league. That was a lot of fun. But Yeah, you hate to see it. But I mean, San Fran, I said it before they went on their little losing streak. I said the playoffs run through San Francisco, and here they are taking lead, and they're still down to Philly in the playoff standings, but they get that head to head win and continue pushing forward, and they look like the best team in the league. I mean, people are talking Brock Purdy for MVP after this game. He's not even the best player on that team, but he does his job, man. He takes care of business. He runs the Shanahan offense, and the defense is balling out too. Corey, what'd you think of this one? I watched every second of it, and it was a fantastic game, man.
Speaking of non-quarterback MVPs, I think Christian McCaffrey deserves a couple talks as well. Technically, still though, the NFC runs through Philly. It runs through the link. They still have the one game over them, and if they don't lose again, then they get it. It still runs through the link. So I still don't understand how San Francisco lost 3 games in a row. I don't get it. I don't know if everybody was just sick. I know they had a couple injuries.
Is because I know Brock Purdy had that concussion that he came back from. The only thing I could think is he had some lingering effects with it, and that affected his decision making. That was getting him picked off or something. Because I mean, they look like the best team in the league, man. They just dominated Philly on their own field
at the link. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think Philly's that bad. I don't know what happened. It was odd. I didn't think Philly was the best team, but I thought they were better than that. Maybe San Francisco's just that good, I guess.
I mean, Philly's kind of going through a gauntlet at this point in their schedule, and it seems like the last 3 or 4 games in a row, Philadelphia's been playing in the rain, and I'm just like, gosh, can we not get like a clean game, a clean field for them to play on, so you can actually see these athletes taking advantage and not being slowed down by the rain or. But I'll shut up. Kyle, what'd you think of this one, man?
I did not think that this score was going to be 42-19. That's for sure. Jalen Hurts left the game briefly, and we did see Marcus Mariota come in. I read something today, an article today that said that the Eagles should shut down Jalen Hurts until he's 100% healthy and make sure that they have him for the playoffs. Because honestly, if you lose Hurts, there's no way that you're getting. I mean, I don't think Marcus Mariota is going to get you to the NFC Championship. You need Jalen Hurts. We saw what these Eagles looked like last year with Gardner Minshew, and they were nowhere near the Eagles they are when they have Jalen Hurts, because he is a dual threat quarterback. But this was a mugging. Somebody call the police, because Philadelphia they got mugged hard. This was assault. It's wild. San Francisco is just. They're great on offense, great on defense. They're that three losses they had. Brock Purdy threw interceptions in each of those games. They were without Debo for, I think, all 3 of them. They didn't have Trent Williams for a few of them. So, I mean, San Francisco's had an issue with staying healthy going back multiple years. So if they start losing guys, I could see them start losing games. And we saw that with that 3-game losing streak they had too. So, but this was definitely a surprise.
Yeah, I had a couple of things to follow up on, and I can't remember both of them. But one of them, Debo showed up in all black Air Force Ones and called the Philadelphia Eagles secondary trash and said he was gonna trash them, and then he went out there and did just that. So Debo showed up and started snatching chains, and there wasn't anything they could do about it. You better tuck it if Debo's coming through, because he'll take it. We'll move on to the final game of the 6-pack challenge from last week. Sunday night football, the Kansas City Chiefs travel to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. They lose this game 19-27. Myself and Kyle had Green Bay +6, and Corey had Kansas City -6. Kyle, I'll let you take it, man. Tell me what happened. Tell me, you predicted it. You said I would take Green Bay to win this ball game. So go ahead and gloat a little bit, man.
I'd love to gloat. I would love to gloat, but the refs helped Green Bay a little bit in this one. And when I say a little bit, I mean a lot. I mean, Marquez Valdez gave, I think it was Corey Valentine, or not Corey Valentine, sorry, but it was
Carrington Valentine.
Carrington Valentine, former Kentucky Wildcat from Cincinnati, Ohio, I read today. He gave that man a piggyback ride. I posted a video on TikTok that has almost 500,000 views, basically saying, you know, it didn't matter anyway because Marquez Valdez wasn't going to catch it. You know, he doesn't have very good hands. We saw him drop a would-be touchdown against the Philadelphia Eagles a few weeks ago. So it mattered. It would have mattered. But there was a bullshit call on Green Bay too when Patrick Mahomes was trying to get an extra yard and he got hit and the refs flagged it. And it's like, no, it was a legal hit. It was a good hit, but I can't complain about that because the refs said, hey, Green Bay, we owe you one, and they paid up. I would say the most exciting thing about this, and I don't think Green Bay, I mean, they could go on some magical run. They could win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to get my hopes up. I don't even know that I really want them to make the playoffs. I mean, I do, but I'd like to see, you know, us have a nice high draft pick. The team is so young. The team is very, very young. Our wide receivers are either have been in the league for this is their second year or they're all rookies. Our tight ends are all younger players. Our offensive line, minus David Bakhtiari, all younger players. On the defensive side of the ball, it's young too. I mean, there's a lot within the next few years. Look for Green Bay to be a top contender in the NFC until they have to start paying some of these guys and they start losing these guys. But I think Green Bay is a little bit for real and should make the playoffs. I said it last week. They're going to have at least 10 wins this season. And this was the biggest game I thought that they would lose. Other than that, the schedule for the rest of the way is pretty cake. So this is a shout out to everybody. Go pick up any Green Bay Packer in fantasy. Go pick up their defense. Go pick up Daniel Carlson's little brother, Andres Carlson. Andres Carlson. Anders Carlson. You know, whatever. I don't know. Go pick him up. So they just have a really, really easy schedule the rest of the way, and Jordan Love's looking really good. There was another stat I saw today that dang it, it left me. Go ahead.
That's all right. I didn't expect Green Bay to win this game, but I did expect them to cover the 6 at Lambeau. I mean, they just, like you said, Kyle, they get calls there. I'm a Bears fan. I've seen it for years, but I mean, to hear you say it is heartwarming. I'll be honest. But yeah, and it did go the other way. You're absolutely right. Because they're going to protect the face of the NFL and the guy you see at every commercial break, Patrick Mahomes. You can't even touch him. But that's just the way the NFL is these days. I mean, good for Green Bay. I watch Jordan Love get better each week, and I cry myself to sleep because I'm sick and tired of them having a great freaking quarterback up there. And it is what it is as a Bears fan. We've had 17,000 since 2009, I think. So, you know, it's very difficult when we can't find one and you guys just have them growing on trees in Green Bay, I believe. I don't know. Maybe it's something in the water or in the beer. I don't know how they get down up there. But, Corey, what'd you feel about this game, man?
Well, this just proves that Kansas City, like I've been saying, it's not the best team in the AFC. And despite, Kyle, whether you want them to make the playoffs or not, the NFC sucks except for like 3 teams. So there's 4 teams that are 6-6, yours included. So you're currently in 7th right now. Minnesota's ahead of you because of the win-to-win. But that's going to change, obviously. And then the 2 teams below you are 6-6, and then the rest of the teams 5-7 or worse.
Yeah,
the NFC sucks. So like you're going to make it regardless. That being said, I watched that game. Green Bay looks like kind of a good team, and it's kind of gross to say, but I mean, if Aaron Jones can get back healthy to 100%, which I don't know can happen, they got a real shot to piss somebody off in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want them. You wouldn't want to see them in the first round. Is Aaron Jones still dealing with the hamstring from week 1?
So I'm pretty sure he came back in and re-aggravated it. He had been playing sparingly. I mean, Green Bay is trying everything they can. They They released James Robinson from the practice squad, I believe, today, and added Kenyon Drake. So that just tells you that, they're – I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of these guys that they're bringing out. I was excited for James Robinson because he's younger too, but Drake's been around for a long time, and I don't know how much juice he has left. I'm just waiting for A.J. Dillon. As soon as we have a snow game, A.J. Dillon will go for 25 carries, $125, and probably 3 touchdowns. And he'll just plotter through that defense with a snowy game.
Have you guys seen what Eddie Lacy's up to lately? Maybe you can
I think he's I don't know if he's laid off the cheeseburgers or not. And
his weight's up. I know his weight.
What do you want him to play? Aaron left tackle? He's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got Bakhtiari in and out of the lineup. Maybe it'll help. But was there any other games from last week you guys wanted to touch on? There's one in particular that I'd like to talk about before we move on.
Mine was just Bengals and Jaguars.
That's where I was going. That's lead us right in. Go ahead, Corey.
I hope that Trevor Lawrence is not done. I think it was just a sprain, right? I believe
it looked rough on the field.
It looked awful, but it didn't look. It looked nothing's broke. It nothing looked like it ripped or anything. It was just an unfortunate way his body went and stuff. But the Jaguars, Jake Browning for the Cincinnati Bengals had arguably one of the best games I've ever seen from a quarterback, not a backup, a quarterback. That was an insane game by him, and he had to play that game, and they still barely won. I still think Jacksonville's good. They still have a shot at the number 1 seed, but that's only if Trevor Lawrence comes back and Etienne gets more healthy. I think they also lost Christian Kirk too. I don't know how long.
Yeah, a groin injury. That's
core muscle injury. Yeah,
that's a big one too. But
talk about re-aggravating things. That's something that might feel good, and then you get out there and start running around, and all of a sudden it hurts again. Just like I wanted to talk about Browning, just the way he was. I mean, he was willing and dealing on Monday night, fellas. And I love those Bengals uniforms when they wear the all white with the white helmets. They're so freaking sweet. And I mean, he was spreading the ball around like a true point guard. They were forcing the ball to Jamar Chase. Even if he wasn't wide open, they were forcing it into him. And that's what you got to do when you got a receiver like that. You just got to get him touches any way you can. And they did that. They won the game. It sucks for Trevor Lawrence. The unfortunate thing is the timing of this, because if he's not 100% and you have to let him sit, there's only 5 weeks left before the playoffs, and they're in the AFC. And as you know, Corey, your Houston Texans are right on their heels. And even though they have they split the series, it's a little touchy there in the AFC.
They're only 1 game up. They're 8-4, and Houston's 7-5. So
yeah, so that's a tough one. Kyle, did you watch any of Monday night, or what did you feel?
I watched this whole game, and then I'm gonna throw my brother out there. He's a Bengals fan. He texted me the next day, and he said it was always the Bengals. And I think he put $300 on the Bengals money line when they were down by 7, and he won, I think, $3,500 off of that. Now he's a Bengals fan, so I don't know. He said I looked at the way they looked the first drive, and I just had to put money on it. Speaking of Jamar Chase and force feeding him the ball, at one point in this game, his first 5 catches, he had 10 yards. 5 catches for 10. That's a bad running back stat. That's not even a wide receiver stat. 5 receptions for 10 yards. And then the only other stat I want to throw out from this game is that Jake Browning has the most passing yards this season in a game by a Bengals quarterback, and it came against Jacksonville. Not Joe Burrow, Jake Browning. And I know Jake Browning's bounced around the league a little bit. He was with the Green Bay practice squad there for a little while as well. But, I mean, there's some of these guys we talk about it. I mean, look at Kurt Warner, who was bagging groceries and went on to have an MVP career. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. More often than not, guys fizzle out. But we were real high on Robert Joshua Dobbs, and he was looking real great. And my guy was still named the starter for this week. So, props to the past or not. But who knows? Maybe Jake Browning's for real. What do they do? And this is, obviously hypotheticals. But imagine if Jake Browning leads the Bengals to the playoffs, and then they go to the Super Bowl and he wins the Super Bowl. And you've just paid Joe Burrow $275 million. That's a dilemma. You have to what do you do?
Yeah.
You don't
think,
do you move forward Browning or to what, and I know
I think if that scenario were to happen, they would trade him away while his price is high.
Exactly.
Jake Browning has been in Cincinnati for 2 or 3 years, so he knows the offense. And that offense has been throughout the whole league. Zach Taylor came from Sean McVay, who came from Shanahan, and everyone seems to be running that offense, and it just seems to work. So he can land anywhere if he does leave Cincinnati, and know the offense. So that's it'd be a hell of a dilemma though. But we'll move on if you guys are ready to, and get into this week's picks. The 12-ounce Crow Route podcast, big spread of the week. Kyle kind of foreshadowed this one. It's Monday Night Football. The Tennessee Titans traveling down to South Beach to take on the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are 13-point favorites at home. The over-under is 47.5. The money line for Tennessee is plus 550. For Miami is minus 800. Kyle, do you have any statistics for us?
Oh, you want me to just throw all these statistics?
I mean, unless you want me to just pick willy-nilly and then continue to go 1-4, 1-5, and 2-4.
I like educated Aaron where he goes 5-1. Which shout out to Aaron. I don't know if you look at the standings that were posted today. Aaron's back over 500. Everybody is over 500 right now at this point in time in the six-pack challenge, which is hasn't happened a lot this season. So shout out to us. But this on paper, this looks like it's about to be. I said that San Francisco assaulted Philadelphia. This looks like Miami's about to assault Tennessee on paper. I mean, Miami has the best offense in the league. I'll tell you that. First in passing, second in rushing, first in total yards. I feel like I tell you this every week because Miami is always our big spread. Yeah. Their defense on the other end, they're great against the run. They're great against the pass.
Getting better.
And they lost Jalen Phillips too. Yeah. And they're just finding guys to just step up and play. They've given the ball more away than they've taken it away. Their turnover differential is -4, but guess what? So is Tennessee's, and they have a rookie quarterback under center as well. Tennessee is not great at anything offensively. They're mediocre in running yards per game. They're 17th in the league. Those are you got to get that up, especially if you're the Tennessee Titans and you have King Henry. It's December time. Expect that number to probably be top 12 by the end of the year, as long as Derrick Henry can stay healthy. He left the game against the Colts, and they said that he's not in concussion protocol and that he should play. I don't know. I haven't really been monitoring that at all. Defensively, Tennessee's better against the run than they are the pass. They allow 337 yards per game. They allow 21 points per game. The Dolphins allow 22 points a game, though. They allow more points per game than the Titans. Their offense, Miami's offense scores 32 a game, and Tennessee's offense scores 17.5, almost double what Tennessee scores. This 13 points is huge. It's a very, very big spread in the NFL. I know there's been weeks where I've taken Miami on a big spread, and there's been weeks where I've been like, I don't think I want to take them on a big spread. Tennessee didn't look halfway decent last week against the Colts, and in my opinion, Colts are a better team than the Titans. But when I look at these two teams and I look at what Miami does to poor teams, to awful teams, and Tennessee, I'm sorry, you're not a very good team. I've got to roll with Miami -13. I'm gonna lock that in.
Yeah, the big spread is definitely tricky on this one. Dang near 2 touchdowns, but we have seen Miami they put up 45 last week. They put up 70 earlier this year against the Broncos. It's just Corey, what are you feeling on this one, man?
I'll keep it short and simple. If this was at Nissan Stadium and it was super cold, I get it. That's a lot of points, but this is at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. -13 is not that bad. Look, if everybody's calling Miami frauds, whatever, they're still beating the shitty teams, and Tennessee's a shitty team. So until they don't do this, I think Miami's going to win by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, wins are wins. And Kyle, the big stat that you put out there, in my opinion, was how bad Tennessee is against the passing game, and the Dolphins have Tyreek Hill, and you're going to double Tyreek Hill. Well, we got Jalen Waddle over on this side, so they'll find a way to get the ball in one of their playmakers' hands. Like you said, Corey, at Hard Rock in Miami, you can't take advantage of the weather turning when it's still probably 85 degrees and humid as hell down there. So yeah, give me Miami minus 13 as well on Monday night under the lights at Hard Rock. Our nail biter of the week this week is another pair of teams that we just talked about. The Indianapolis Colts traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals, and it's +1, not plus exclamation point. I am an idiot. The over-under
I like it. Plus.
The over-under is 40. The money line for both of these teams is -110. Are you going to edit that, Kyle? I'm trying to edit.
Yeah, I got you.
I
got you. You're fine.
But before Kyle goes into this one, I just talked about Cincinnati, and yeah, fuck it. I'm going out on a limb. Give me Cincinnati +1 at home. I like the way Jake Browning's playing. I think they're a better team than the Colts. The Colts got rid of their best linebacker, just cut him outright, who's now a Philadelphia Eagle because why the heck not? The Eagles, I mean, the rich get richer. But I really like what Cincinnati's doing. Even with a backup, both of these are backup quarterbacks, but who are you going to trust more? Zach Taylor, who's took his team to a Super Bowl, or Shane Steichen, who was an offensive coordinator last year and is trying to kind of duct tape that team together to get wins. I'm going to trust Cincinnati at home. Kyle, you can give me some notes and stuff now, and if I miss this pick, we'll just blame it on me not doing any homework.
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is go back and correct myself. I said that Jake Browning spent time on Green Bay's practice squad. He did not. I misspoke there. He spent time with the Vikings, and he has been with the Bengals since 2021, I believe. My bad. On paper, these teams are pretty close to similar, except for a few things. Cincinnati is still dead last in rushing yards per game, even though Joe Mixon, I believe, had 2 touchdowns.
Over game.
And Jake Browning even ran one in. They're still dead last at 82 yards a game rushing. They're 17th in passing yards. Indianapolis on the other side, they have a top half offense, 16th in passing, 12th in rushing, 14th in total yards, 8th in points per games, but they've given the ball away 18 times. And that'll happen when you're playing with your backups, is turning the ball over. Defensively, the Bengals defense statistically against the run, against the pass, they're not great. 27th against the pass, 27th against the rush, 32nd in the NFL, 388 yards per game allowed, and they allow 22 points per game. But they take the ball away. They've given the ball away 10 times. They've taken it away 19, +9 turnover differential, ranking them 3rd. Defensively, Colts are not good against the run. They allow a lot of points. They're all right against the pass. They also take the ball away. They've taken the ball away 20 times. I was very back and forth on this one. This is one that I didn't have written down for myself until about 10 minutes ago. And I think the one of the reasons I took this pick, one of the reasons I'm making this pick, and he's going to be my X factor of the week, if you want to call it. But when I looked at some of the runs that Chase Brown had last week for the Cincinnati Bengals, the man was igniting that offense. He was the thunder or the lightning to Joe Mixon's thunder. I think that if you can get him the ball and get him out of space and he can get a ground game going, you give Jake Browning time, even more time, to get the ball to Jamar, get the ball to T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Cincinnati still has a chance to make the playoffs too. The Steelers are falling apart. The Browns are falling apart. The Bills are 6-6. The Broncos lost. I mean, the AFC, that 7 seed it's up for grabs, and I don't think Cincinnati's totally out of it. This one's at home at Paycor. this is a pick 'em. This is a coin flip because I could really see this one going either way. But I'm locking in with Cincinnati +1 on this one.
Yeah, get the home field advantage, and yeah, Chase Brown was a guy I liked in the draft out of Illinois. Runs really hard. I believe he had like records at Illinois for rushing yards, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, then just delete that and pretend like I never said it. But Chase Brown is a hell of a running back. So, yeah, he can do it all for you. He can run, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's a pretty daggone good blocker as well, playing in the Big Ten. So the cold weather is not going to bother him when the weather starts to turn as well. And, yeah, I mean, it'd be a good 1-2 punch with him and Mixon. Corey, how you feeling on this one? You rolling with us, or are you going to go against us?
Yeah, I was actually surprised when it's Cincinnati +1. In theory, it's always been the home team gets 3 points.
Yeah.
So I was surprised when this was +1. After seeing Jake Browning do what he did, when you look at just that right there, that's better than Gardner. Jamar Chase is better than Pittman, in my opinion. Joe Mixon's better than Zach Moss. Just offensive alone, it's at Paycor. I'm going to take Cincinnati +1, and I'm actually going to hammer the shit out of this over. We just seen both of those teams score at least 20 against worser teams. So, and Cincinnati scored 28 or whatever, 33 or whatever it was against Jacksonville. So I think they both, I think they hit the over on this for sure too. But Bengals, a close one, but Bengals.
Yeah, that's a solid bet for that over too. Yeah, I like that one. Our next game is also Sunday at 1:00. The Detroit Lions traveling down to Soldier Field to take on the red hot Chicago Bears coming out of their bye week. The Chicago Bears are 3-point home underdogs. The over-under is 40.5. The money line for Detroit is -166. For Chicago was +140. Kyle, I'm going to need you to talk me out of this one, man. Give me some statistics about
You want me to give you the stats, or you just want me to tell you that the Chicago Bears are ass and the Lions have a great passing offense? And Detroit has turned the ball over quite a bit, but not as much as Chicago. Chicago's turned the ball over 21 times, Detroit 17. Defensively, you can't run against Detroit. They only allow 93 rushing yards per game. Offensively, Chicago, they're number 3 in the NFL in rushing yards per game at 137 yards. So, you're basically running up against a brick wall. So I don't expect the Bears, to have a huge rushing game, but Justin Fields is always in to break a 50, 60-yard touchdown as well. Because the guy will pull it down and he'll go, which is one of the big reasons they're number 3 in rushing in the NFL.
He missed the whole month of the season too. So
I think
this year. Last year it was big because he had over 1,000 yards, but this year he missed a whole month. Go ahead.
Bagent does the same thing. Bagent's willing to run too, from what I had seen. He never had a big game of 100 yards rushing, but I think from what I've seen, he was willing to pull the ball down and get some yards too. So, but no, they have a 3-headed committee at running back. They have Roshan, they have Dante Foreman, and they have Khalil Herbert. So they have they can ride the hot hand and keep their guys going as well. 25th passing yards for the Bears, points per game. They're putting up 20. Detroit's putting up 27. I mean, this one for me, we watched these two teams, 3 weeks ago play, and Detroit had to storm back at the end of the game to win. Yeah. And that's their thing is, they like to put themselves in predicaments where I guess they have to storm back and win games and that. But when I look at these teams on paper, and I know just from listening to Aaron every week talking about, our coach this, our coach that, this team sucks, I'm so mad. I have no choice but to go with Detroit -3. Defensively, I would argue that the Bears actually have a better defense. They're first in the league against the rush, only allowing 79 yards per game. But when you're allowing 240 through the air, you don't have to be run against. And I think that the Bears defense will be challenged by Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in this one as well. But yeah, give me Detroit -3.
Go ahead, Corey. I think it's going to be short and sweet for you.
Man, actually, this one I don't want to pick this one, unfortunately. So look, we just seen the Lions try to give it away against the Saints. The Bears are a better team than the Saints, and they played already once. And like I said, Detroit had to kind of come back. I'm gonna take the Lions because I love what they're doing right now. Dan Campbell, man Campbell. But Chicago's gonna keep this game closer than the Saints did. And if they win, I wouldn't be completely shocked at all, really. But I'll take Detroit -3. And once again, I'm gonna hammer this over. 41, I think that's very doable in this game.
Well, I think a lot of that may have to do with the last time we saw Chicago. They won a game 12-10. So the offense was not working that game. They did a lot of screens because Brian Flores blitzes, and yeah, it was just ugly. But
real quick too, I will say too, the Bears are coming off a bye, right?
yeah,
so they're coming off a bye, so that is a little extra rest.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of history to look at with this particular coaching staff, but the Bears are historically awful coming off the bye. They get the extra rest, and I don't know what they do, but they come back and they are not focused and not ready. And in the Nagy era, it was like that. In the Eberflus era, I don't see it being any different. We run the ball really well in Chicago, and just like you said, Kyle, they play really good rush defense. The passing defense has stepped it up a notch since Montez Sweat joined, and we got a little bit of a pass rush. We picked off I'm blanking on Detroit's quarterback's name. Jared Goff, 3, 4. We picked him off 3 times and forced a fumble on a kick return during the last time these two teams met, and that's the reason the Bears were able to get out to a big lead, only to choke it all away.
And let me interrupt you before you make your pick, because this might help. I just went back and looked at the last 3 games between the Bears and the Lions, and in the last 3 games, Justin Fields has rushed for over 100 yards in each of those games.
Damn.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah. I've got Justin Fields starting in a fantasy league this weekend just because of that. He does well against Detroit, typically, but I just like you said, Kyle, I can't trust this coaching staff. And the more games they win, the closer we are to Eberflus sticking around, and I definitely don't want to see that. Jim Harbaugh's got one foot out the door at Michigan, and he can bring it on down here to Chicago. I'll take him in a heartbeat. So I've got to go Detroit -3. I just trust their coaching staff more than ours. Watch for is Jameson Williams healthy? Because if he is, he's good for a long touchdown, at least one this game, because he just always seems to get behind the Bears secondary, and they get mixed up, and he just does it every time he plays them. But give me Detroit -3 on the road. As much as it pains me to say. We'll move on to the next game. Sunday at 4:05, the Seattle Seahawks traveling to San Francisco for an in-conference, in-division rival. San Francisco is 10.5-point favorites at home. The over-under in this game is 47. The money line for Seattle is +425. For San Fran is -575. Fellas, I put this game on because it was a big spread, and I didn't expect a big spread between these two teams. I feel like they play each other really well. In that division, they just always are fighting each other to see who's going to be at the top. So, Kyle, can you talk some sense into this for me?
So, San Francisco, 7th in passing, 5th in rushing, 3rd in total yards, 3rd in offensive points a game, 29th in giveaways, which is good. They've only given the ball up 10 times. On the other side of the token, Seattle looked really, really good this past Thursday against the Dallas Cowboys. Passing yards a game, 14. Rushing yards per game, 27th. Total yards, 19. Points per game, 14th. And giveaways, they've given the ball away 14 times. Defensively, the best ranking for the Seahawks is 19th. And the worst ranking for the 49ers is 14th, and that's in their passing yards per game allowed. They're first against the rush, which I think they're tied with Chicago, actually. They're tied for number 1 at 79 yards a game. Total yards a game, they're 5th. Points per game allowed, they're only allowing 15 points a game, 16 points a game. So, I mean, on paper, this looks like it should be another mugging, another assault. We're going to watch and see. The 49ers are going to be wanted in every state because they're bullies. I was very wishy-washy on this one. I said, you know what? I know these two teams played each other, and it wasn't that long ago. I believe it was on Thanksgiving, and San Francisco won 31-13. And I said, yeah, I'm locking in with San Francisco minus 10.5. I don't love it, but they've already beat Seattle by 18 once. What's to stop them from doing it again?
Yeah. Go ahead, Corey.
That short and sweet. It was at Lumen Field on Thanksgiving, and San Fran won by 18. Now it's at Levi Field. They're going to win by 18 or 20. I mean, it's just short and sweet. And I think San Francisco is even more healthy than they were 2 weeks ago. So short and sweet, San Francisco by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, like I said, I put this one in because of the big spread and made myself think about it. But I guess we were all on the same wavelength because I literally just Googled the results of the last time these teams played. And, yeah, I mean, 31-13 San Fran, and now they're at home and they seem healthy and they're rolling over teams. I think they just see this as another step into the direction of the playoffs. And I completely expected to pick Seattle plus 10.5, but I mean, I got to go San Fran. I can't pick against them because they're just so good right now. They've just got everything rolling and everything clicking, and they're at home. So, I mean, it is what it is. Give me San Fran minus 10.5. I feel like we're all picking the same, so maybe
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Absolutely.
Maybe these last couple of games we can try and get some differences. Otherwise, Corey's going to run away with our 6-pack challenge this year if we're all on the same wavelength. Sunday at 4:25, so this should be America's game of the week. Buffalo at Kansas City. Kansas City's a 2.5-point home favorite. The over/under is 47.5. The money line for Buffalo is plus 120. For Kansas City is minus 142. Kyle, give me some notes, bud.
I'm going to give you the stats first, but I'm picking last. I've written down already who I'm taking for these next two games. I want to see who you guys are going to pick before I give you mine, but I'll give you the stats.
Great idea.
On paper, Buffalo offensively, they're very close, but I would say Buffalo's better, except in the giveaway department. Actually, never mind. They're tied. They both given the ball away 20 times. But passing yards per game, Buffalo's 5th, Kansas City's 8th. Rushing yards per game, Buffalo 10, Kansas City 16th. Total yards per game, Buffalo 4th, Kansas City 8th. Points per game, Buffalo 27 points a game, Kansas City 23 points a game. This should be 50 plus points. Hit the over, right? Defensively, they're pretty close match. Passing yards per game, 8th for Buffalo allowed. Passing yards per game allowed, 8th for Buffalo, 6th for Kansas City, 20th for Buffalo, 19th for Kansas City in rushing yards allowed. Total yards, 12th Kansas City or Buffalo, 4th for Kansas City, but they're only 20 yards different. Points per game, Buffalo's only allowing 19 points a game, while Kansas City's only allowing 17. The difference on defense is Buffalo takes the ball away. They've got 21 turnovers. Kansas City has only had 14. Buffalo has a +1 turnover differential. Kansas City has a -6. So there's your stats.
Wow. Well, Corey, give me your pick, and then I'll pick, and then we'll pass it back to Kyle and let him pick.
Bold take. I think Buffalo's a better team than Kansas City. I can't believe they're 6-6. They have to have this game at Arrowhead if they want any shot to get back in the playoffs. Kansas City does not lose 2 games in a row a lot, but I think this time they're going to lose 2 games in a row. I'm taking Buffalo plus points.
Well, here we are going opposite of each other because I got Kansas City at home at Arrowhead. They're going to be pissed off coming back from Green Bay and feeling like the refs let them down and didn't get the win. I think Arrowhead's going to be rocking, and I think Josh Allen might make some mistakes there at the end, and we kind of see Buffalo with all that talent and all that money spent kind of pissing it all away, for lack of a better word, this year. I'm going to go Kansas City -2.5 at home. Tell me what you got, Kyle.
I thought I'd be riding on this one by myself, and I'll go ahead and say it right now too, is Kansas City nor Philadelphia are going to be in the Super Bowl this year. We will not see either of those teams in the Super Bowl. They will collapse and they will fall apart in the playoffs. On Buffalo, like Corey said, Buffalo's the better team. Buffalo is fighting for their lives to make the playoffs right now. Another loss, and they can kiss it goodbye.
Yeah.
Kansas City, Denver just lost last week to Houston to give them, they lost. Kansas City lost 2. So did Denver. It's a wash, right? So I think they still have a 2-game lead over Denver.
2 games.
They've got a little bit of wiggle room. Are they going to be pissed off, angry? Sure. But Buffalo is fighting for their lives. And I would hate to have to play Buffalo and Josh Allen and as long as Stephon Diggs can keep his composure. But I like Buffalo plus 2.5. And like Corey said, I think that they win this game.
Well, now I feel bad, but maybe I'll be right and make up some ground. Sunday night football, the Philadelphia Eagles traveling down to Dallas in a showdown of the NFC East. Dallas Cowboys are minus 3.5 at home. The over-under is 53. The money line for Philly is plus 150. For Dallas is minus 180. I'm not even going to let you guys talk me out of it. Dallas at home, minus 3.5. Lock it in. Give me Dallas. I think Philly's falling apart. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dallas is right there with Philly to take the division. And if Philly starts falling down, you see San Fran coming up, and the playoffs are right through San Francisco, like I said. Kyle, you can give me your notes now.
News, notes, nuggets, whatever you want. I just got a thing on my watch here. Former Jags employee accused of stealing more than $22 million from franchise by manipulating its virtual credit card program.
Awesome!
Wow. That's breaking news for you, I guess. Dallas, offensively and defensively, statistically is better in every single category except rushing yards per game. Philadelphia is better offensively in rushing yards. And they are better in rushing yards per game allowed. So they've got a good rushing offense and they've got a good rushing defense. So they're barely better than Dallas in that. Dallas doesn't turn the ball over. They've only turned it over 10 times. They have 18 takeaways. The reason I wanted to give the stats first and give my picks last is because I thought I'd be riding by myself on these 2 games. I thought I'd be riding with Buffalo by myself. And I thought I'd be on Dallas minus 3.5 by myself too, but obviously I'm not. The last 2 times these teams met, it was a very, very close game, and it could have gone another way. And I think that this game will be very, very close and could probably go either way. But the way that Dallas has been playing and the way that Philly just played against San Francisco, I've got to ride with Dallas minus 3.5.
Corey, you've been on Dallas a lot this year. Is that continuing? Tell me what you got in this game.
I want to start this by saying I absolutely loathe Philadelphia and everything about it. Eagles, Phillies, everything. That being said, I feel also Dallas has been playing at their stadium since September. I don't think they've had a away game this year, it seems like.
The last away game was at Philly, probably.
Yeah. So the game is close at the Link. I think the game is going to be super close at Jerry World. But Philly doesn't have to win for me to win this pick. So I think Philadelphia covers. It's going to be close. I think Dallas wins. I don't want anything to do with it over-under, really. But Philly beat them already. So, and we've seen Dallas play good teams, and Philly beat them, and San Francisco stomped them. So this is Dallas's chance to prove it. This is their coming out party right here. And I think if they win this, they would be tied, and I don't know how the tiebreakers would break out yet. So,
that's a good question. So let me go ahead and let's see if I can remember how to share my screen here. And let's go to share screen. And there's this thing called the playoff machine, and it's through ESPN, and it tells you, well, if Dallas beats Philadelphia, Dallas becomes the top seed in the NFC East. So they're playing essentially they're playing for that 1 seed. So I spend a lot of time on the playoff machine. I feel like ESPN should pay me for as much as I talk about this, but they don't. But yeah, Dallas would take over at least the NFC East. I don't know if they'd be the 1 seed if San Francisco wins as well, which I could tell you. If San Francisco wins, then no, San Francisco is the 1 seed. So they would at least be the leaders of the East.
So what was your pick, Corey? Was it Philly?
Eagles.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. We talked about the Eagles being in a gauntlet. Dallas right now, they just played Seattle. They're going to the Link. Then, or I'm sorry, they're going home again. But then it's at the Bills, at the Dolphins, and then the Lions at home. So that's a gauntlet itself right there. So we're going to find out who Dallas is. We're finding out who the Philadelphia Eagles are as well.
Yeah, that game against the Lions could be some playoff implications if the Lions keep falling apart. So we'll have to see how all that plays out. I feel like I picked the best 6 games this week. But are there any other games? I know one I want to talk about. Corey, I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. Mitchell David Trubisky taking over for the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday night, taking on the New England Patriots. Mitch, I need you to do me one more solid as a Bears fan. Go and lose this ball game so that the Patriots cannot get the number 1 pick, because it's just nothing would be right in the world if the Patriots ended up with the first pick, because it's like the Empire Strikes Back, and
we're going to trade back to the second round anyways. What the fuck's the matter?
But I just had to put it out there. I need Mitch Trubisky to go out there and lose another ball game for the Bears. We'd appreciate it if you could, please and thank you. Pittsburgh, great defense, but it hurts. It hurts when you put all your hopes into a mediocre quarterback. I am well aware of it. Are there any other games you guys wanted to talk about for this week?
I do want to touch base. I do want to touch base real quick on that one. People were like, "Is this Iowa, Minnesota as far as over under goes?" No, it's the freaking Patriots and Steelers, and it's 30.5. Hammer the under on that. It's going to be such a gross game. I can't wait to go to bed early tomorrow.
I can't believe you guys lost to the Chargers 6-0. First of all, Chargers with that roster should put up more than 6 points.
So our defense, despite losing its 2 best players, is still a good defense. The problem is, in 60 minutes, they're on the freaking field, 53 of it. Two, the last 3 games, we have only allowed our opponents to score 10 or less points. How many games we won? 0. Bullshit.
Man, that's awful. That is awful.
I did see a stat that said something about teams are 200 some odd number and 3 when they allow the other team to put up 10 points or less than 10 points, and New England has all 3 of those losses in its last 3 weeks. I wanted to bring up, so Aaron shared in the group chat today a meme that was from Instagram where it says we have Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky, CJ Beathard versus Joe Flacco, Gardner Minshew versus Jake Browning, Baker Mayfield versus Desmond Ridder, Josh Dobbs versus Aiden O'Connell, and Bryce Young versus Jameis Winston. What's going on in the NFL? I mean, we're just losing quarterbacks left and right, and this game is supposed to be safer for quarterbacks and designed to protect the quarterbacks, but I mean they're dropping like flies this year.
Yeah, I saw a stat earlier this year that this was the most rookie quarterbacks to ever start in a single year, and it's because of injuries. Was Tommy DeVito in that thing? I know you got Jordan Love who's looking pretty good, but
you got a Hall of Fame quarterback on the other side of the field.
Yeah, of course, there it goes. There it is.
At this rate, if these games are on TV, I'm just going to go Christmas shopping Sunday. At this point, with all these backup quarterbacks, like it's insane this year.
I mean, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm going to sit down and watch it. I'm going to watch something. I paid for the Sunday ticket. I'm going to get my money's worth out of it.
The only other question I have, because Aaron brought it up earlier when he said Harbaugh would be in Chicago next year, if and when the Chargers job is vacant too, and both of those teams offer Harbaugh a contract, does he go to LA or does he go to Chicago, do you think?
I mean, if he had the choice, I feel like LA would be the easy pick. But honestly, of the teams looking for head coaches, I think he fits the Raiders more than he does the Chargers. You've got a young quarterback, and he can possibly bring his quarterback with him from Michigan, JJ McCarthy. You got a culture that he's been a part of. He was really good friends with Al Davis, the former owner of the Raiders. He was really good friends with John Madden, the Raiders legend. So he has a lot of ties with the Raiders, and of course he played for the Bears. I think he spent a stint in San Diego as well before retiring. So he was a Charger for a little bit, but I don't know. I think it's between the Raiders and the Bears. And who knows? Maybe the Chargers don't move on from their head coach, even though everyone's been saying it.
Well, the 12 fans they have, they'll lose them if Brandon Staley's still there.
And you talk about Marquez Valdes-Scantling and off his drops. The Quentin Johnston is, I mean, you hit him right in the hands, and it's like that's the wrong place to throw it. I don't understand it, man. I mean, he had a lot of drops at TCU, and he was a body catcher. That was one of his main faults in the draft, was that he catches with his body a lot, and it's just
he's got 190 receiving yards this year. The 8 wide receivers picked after him have a minimum of 400 plus.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, one of those is your guy Jalen Reed out there in Green Bay. He's put up a lot of yards that was picked after him.
Real quick, woohoo! We have 2 Monday night games. Why are they at the same time?
Yeah,
why is it like not like 7 and 8:30? I don't get.
I don't know why they don't stagger these things to get more eyes on it. I honestly, fellas, I don't know if I'll watch either of them. I'm gonna go to bed probably. I know it's Green Bay, that's your squad, Kyle, but they're playing the Giants. I mean, it's the. I picked up Green Bay's defense in a fantasy league because they're playing the Giants.
Yeah, I did too. And I'm probably gonna watch, if nothing else. It's the final regular season week in fantasy, and I got a lot of players playing on Monday, so probably be watching, if nothing, just for that.
I tried to last Monday when we were watching the Bengals. I was like, I really want to hear what Eli and Peyton have to say about this quarterback matchup. So I flipped over to the Manning cast. And they said they were going to have Ocho Cinco on. I didn't stick around to see his because it was just awful. They didn't even talk about the game that was going on. And I know a lot of people love the Manning cast, but maybe
I think it's ran its course. Yeah.
And maybe it's just me. They're talking over each other the whole time and trying to fit their jokes in instead of even talk. I mean, I wanted them to break down what they were seeing on the field as quarterbacks watching these quarterbacks. And I didn't get that. I don't even remember who they had on at the time, but it was like, I don't know. And I love Peyton Manning. I mean, I think he could be involved in the NFL as an owner or a coach if he wanted to be. But I'm not a big fan of the Manning cast, and I feel like I'm in the minority on that. I don't know. What do you guys feel on it?
I think it's ran its course. If they still can't figure out how to not over talk over each other, then they ain't going to figure it out. And Peyton gets too butthurt sometimes when people make jokes and shit. Like they do make jokes, but then when he wants to be serious, everybody else has to shut up. Like, I like Peyton too, but I think it's ran its course.
That's older brother Peyton. That's what that is.
I have not watched the Manning cast since it's been on. I just haven't. I don't know. It's not something that I wanted to watch. I'd rather watch the game and not see the commentators' faces on the screen because I can mute the commentators if I want to. But you know, if I can't mute Tony Romo and I got to make fun of him when he's talking. So
the only reason I started watching it was because at the time when it came on, they were still trying to fumble between their Monday Night Football players, and like the chemistry just wasn't good on Monday Night Football. So I watched it hoping to learn stuff, and you didn't get that much. You just got a bunch of stupid interviews, but it was still better than what was on the actual broadcast. But now it's not. You got Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. So
yeah. Now I remember they had 2 on when I was watching, and they was just.
Let me pivot real quick because Aaron did say something about fantasy, but hats off to us in the Brad Johnson Daily Football Roundup Invitational. We all have clinched the playoffs. There's 1 regular season game left. Corey's currently in first, Aaron in second, and then I'm bringing up the rear over in 4th place. I'm hoping to jump up to number 2 this week if Aaron can lose and the guy in 3rd can lose as well, because I'd really like to have that bye so I can keep this belt over here. But I mean, we're 3 of the top 4 teams, guys. We're looking pretty good. But I got to defend this belt. So
yeah, being in first all year it's been hard. Like, it's been tough on me. Very very stressful. Scoring that many points over everybody. It's just Very taxing. It's very taxing.
Isn't that the league where Corey got blasted for a trade earlier this year, and he was just like, I mean, I'm in
It was for
place.
Debo, wasn't it? Didn't he trade for Debo?
Yeah.
I mean, how did that? Let's revisit that real quick. Let's see. Who
Debo, he was hurt,
traded.
but it seems like it's worked out a little bit for me. I don't know.
You traded away Thielen, Henry, and Atwell, and you got Debo and Hunt. So I mean, it's kind of a wash in my opinion. Thielen fell off a cliff. He hasn't looked great.
Hunt, I had to have Hunt started for me for a couple 3 games.
Yeah,
I think.
so I mean, it's not as bad as it was when it happened, because when the trade happened, this is back October 2nd, so the beginning of October. And Thielen had still a lot of good games after that, but
I just didn't believe in Tractor Cito. I didn't think he was just going to be that good this year. So
yeah,
I liked it.
They've been sharing the ball a lot more than they had in the past in Tennessee.
Yep.
I liked Tyjae Spears a lot coming into the draft, but I didn't think he would take away this many carries and touches from King Henry. It's crazy how all that's working out there in Tennessee, and I almost feel bad for Levis. The O-line is awful there. That's one thing I've noticed by watching a lot of Titans football this year is the O-line there is absolute garbage. He doesn't even have time to think before he has to get rid of the ball, and we know what happens in the NFL when that happens. But it is what it is. I think we had a good week. We talked about all of our games and a little bit of our fantasy. Visit Daily Football Roundup's YouTube page and subscribe, and you'll see when we go live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us on Spotify or Podbean or anywhere else.
iHeart.
iHeart. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find the 12-ounce Curl Route podcast on there. Like it, comment on the video, give us a subscribe, a 5-star review. And I'm just going to go out on a limb on this one, Kyle. I have a feeling we're going to have shirts soon. I know the Spotify Wrap just came out this week. My Spotify Wrap came out. Next year, if 12-ounce Curl Route podcast is number 1 on your Spotify Wrap, tag us on Instagram, and I'll pay for it. I'll send you a T-shirt for the 12-ounce Curl Route podcast.
Nice.
But we'll go on and get out of here and do all this all over again next week. Remember, there's a special Christmas episode coming up where we will pick every single game, and that will be the week that Aaron pulls up from the rear and takes the number 1 spot.
Hopefully. No, you won't.
Yeah, I probably won't.
You'll drop back under 500.
Oh, but we'll get out of here, and until next week, Corey, you can tell them for me.
Bye.